Are you ready for the article I found on the Google?
Let's go. Let's go.
Do it. Okay, the title is What You Should Know About Commercial Leases. Are you ready? I suspect you and I are going to see these leases from a different angle, you understand.
We do see them from different angles, and that's part of a lease. That is part of it.
Okay, let's get started. The first thing it says is that a commercial lease is different than a residential lease, and it clearly is trying to define the fact that there's a serious permanent nature to a commercial lease.
There is. It's a contract, Joe. It's a serious contract that is not to be taken lightly.
The next one is fewer customer protection laws apply to commercial leases.
100% true. When you're buying a house or leasing a house, you have a lot of consumer protection. Leasing a property, you don't have as much out there. For some reason, the laws do not protect commercial tenants like they do residential tenants.
Next one is no standard forms exist. This one's tough for me when I'm advising clients because it seems like every single paragraph seems to be a little bit different for me. It's a challenge. It
is a challenge, and some of the reason behind that is each property is different that is being leased. So a lot of leases are made out specifically for that property. There is a few standard forms. There are state forms. But those state forms usually have to have so many changes and addendums that a lot of landlords will just go ahead and have their own leases done for their properties and the way they operate their business.
Okay. Long-term and binding. You would think that would apply to both kind of leases, but I've been in court before. This is serious business. You sign a commercial lease, they're going to hold you to it.
They are going to hold you to it. You usually have a personal guarantee that you're signing. Residential leases are usually a 1-year term. Commercial leases nowadays, an average term is 5 years. And they are binding. It's a contract, Joe, and that's what the customers have to understand. It is a contract. So you have to put the proper protection and have somebody that helps and can advocate for you on what you need in your lease.
Okay. Now, I know this is going to be hard for you, right? And you've got clients listening. They're going to say, don't tell them the secret. But help my listeners out right now. Most of my listeners, if they don't own their property, they're renting. How can you protect my clients that they don't mind signing a 5-year? But Tom, let me be honest with you, buddy. If they're 3 years into this thing and it's just not working, they got to move on. What kind of protection can they ask for?
Those are great. That's a great question. And there's simple things that you have to make sure are in your lease, such as a sublease provision. A sublease provision that doesn't give many restrictions, that can't be unreasonably withheld by the landlord. In that case, if their business is failing and they want an exit strategy, they can then release their space to another business and be a subtenant, and that way they are not totally off the hook, but financially they can be off of the hook.
I got to be honest with you, it's getting harder and harder to do because the market's getting stronger and stronger for the property owners.
It's definitely getting stronger. The limited supply that's out there now, it's way stronger.
The better the market, the harder those leases become, and so getting that kind of protection is really hard to do.
And if you think about it, there's more people interested in less property. So we have a scarcity of supply situation, and that's what's happening.
Yeah. Right. I've got one more for you. Making sure the lease will fit your business. This is a big one for me. You know how I can get over on you smart landlords? I've learned I've got to know my industry so I know exactly what I'm going to use the property for and how I'm going to use that property. And it's through those small points that you don't know that I may be able to put some provisions in there to help me.
And that's what you have to do. You have to take that lease and take that opportunity and that business and make it work for everybody, Joe. That's the master of the deal.
Yeah.
That's what you have to do.
One last thing, and this is an important one. You really have to know what you're leasing. Example of that, you and I worked on a deal where there was this large patio, and there was this question. Is that mine or not? Can I use that patio and can I add things to that patio? And how does that work? How do you price a patio?
In some cases, that patio space is just included, usually on an end cap of a retail strip. It is just included, and it's a benefit of having that end cap location. So landlords don't charge on some of that. But in other locations and they will charge rent on that outside patio. So what you have to do is be with an expert. You have to know the terms. You have to examine the lease to its entirety. And you have to ask questions, Joe. You have to ask the questions and inquire. Make sure your I's are dotted and your T's are crossed before you sign your name to that lease.
So are you always an adversary of the tenant? I mean, tell me how that works, because I know you've helped my clients before.
Sure. I have a fiduciary responsibility for either a landlord or a tenant. And we can work both sides of it. We do a lot of landlord representation, where we represent the landlord and help bring in tenants. The tenants will be represented by other brokers. The tenants have a lot of experience. The tenants will have an attorney that is reviewing their leases. So we can work for the tenant or we can work for the landlord. We do both, and we do both great.
And that's normally why I call you, because I want you to represent my tenants, my clients who are wanting to rent some space, and you do a excellent job at, I call it tenant rep. I don't know if there's a formal name for it.
I appreciate that, Joe.
It's
much.
Getting all of your experience working on this side of the table, and sometimes that's invaluable.
And let me tell you, I've been in the trenches a long time. And you learn a lot, and you see a lot from past experience. I probably am over 1,000 leases that I have done in my career, and probably 5,000 with the associates within my office.
Right.
And through that, you get to see all these different scenarios.